Hello, and welcome to Making Fun. This will be fun.
Meow, meow.
Making fun.
When I was coming up with the list of projects for this Halloween season, I remembered an idea that I had a couple of years back and have been wanting to do for a very long time. For a few years now, I've known exactly how I wanted this project to look, so I waited until I had the tools and the skills to make it look vaguely like my idea. And I'm pretty proud of how this project turned out in the end. So for today's project, I'm going to be making what every ghoul needs in her life and carving myself a headstone.
So I started by finding and printing out the image that I wanted to have engraved onto my headstone. This is actually a Simpsons quote, and then I've got a little memento mori symbol to go on the top there. After deciding exactly how I wanted them to be placed, I took them outside and used some spray glue to keep them in place so they didn't move around. I'm out here, I've got my eye protection, I've got my mask, and I am going to begin to Dremel away at this and hope I don't screw anything up. I am very new at this, and I haven't used my Dremel much, and not for anything precise, so I'm nervous. But, here we go. Wow, I looked nervous. Did you see me clutching my little sunflower mask like that? I don't remember being that nervous. I guess I was, though. Anyway, the first thing I did was go around the outside of each of the letters and carve them out as carefully as I possibly could. Tavis gave me the advice that I should have my Dremel on the fastest possible speed so that it didn't pull away from me when it hit any of the grain of the wood, which was really smart advice, actually. Then I carved out the inside and outside of each of these big block letters, making sure again to be as precise as possible, going very slowly, very steadily, and focusing as much as my chaotic brain could possibly handle. Okay, I'm going to attempt to peel the paper off now. Just so there's less of it to deal with later. It was still a huge mess. The next thing I did was go around and tracing out all of the black pieces of this memento mori symbol. I wanted it to have a good carved in feeling, so I wanted to take the back out as much as possible. I don't have the footage, but I also went around each and every one of the feathers as well to make sure that they had their own engraving. Then I went with a larger head on my rotary tool and I blocked out the bigger letters. I wanted them to have that relief look that a typical Broadway marquee has. I did struggle with my preciseness a bit more here and keeping everything even on the inside, but since I was painting it black, it didn't matter too much that it wasn't always the same. I used a very pointy Dremel head here to go around all of the letters again and make sure that the font came out clearly and all the little serifs on each letter were very precise. When I was done, I got a bunch of tools out, but mostly ended up using X-Acto knives to go through and carve out the little feathers again, and then I put a grinding head onto my Dremel and used that to sand out the larger letters. Then it was time to paint. I picked this slate gray color because I wasn't up for doing any marbling or making it look like stone, and I just thought it was nice and smooth and unobtrusive of a color, I guess. For the black portions, I watered down black paint and then filled up this syringe and carefully dripped them in. I was trying to be as smooth and as clean as I possibly could, and it kind of worked, but I still ended up having a lot of mess to deal with after the fact. I hand painted in all of the letters and the fine feathering on the skull head, and whenever possible, I was using that drip technique and letting it pool on its own. The results were a little bit hit and miss, and there was a lot of cleanup that I had to do in the end, but it all ended up looking really, really nice. My final task was to paint on the marquee lights. This tool that I'm using here is actually a nail art tool for making flowers and for drawing, and I find it very nice when I need to do controlled dots or when I'm working with something very fine and I don't want to use a brush. I like using the pointed ends of these to do very, very fine painting when I have to. So, if you're in the market for a dotting tool for acrylic paint, I can highly recommend nail art tools. And then all that was left to do was to let it dry and see how it turns out.
And now I have my own bespoke headstone. Obviously, I didn't carve my own name into it. That wasn't really the joke I was going for. Like I said in the voiceover, this is actually a quote from The Simpsons. I believe the episode is called A Fish Called Selma. This joke just has made me laugh for years. And a few years ago, I said, I want that written on my headstone when I die. That's all I want written. It's very me. Being both a huge musical theater nerd and a spooky weirdo. It came out really well. I'm really happy with it. I'm excited to have this adorning my wall of spooky art that I sleep underneath. It'll be a lot of fun. I've been thinking about this project for a couple of years and I'm really happy with how it came out, especially for my first project using the Dremel. I was really nervous about that. Like, I kept putting this off because of how nervous I was to start using the Dremel, and it came out better than I had hoped at the time, so I'm really glad. I had hoped to do the Broadway marquee in glow-in-the-dark paint, but I couldn't find it. Long story short, COVID, so, you know, we will live without glow-in-the-dark paint. Broadway is calling me, and I must go. The theater. Yeah. I look cute and spooky. I feel so weird right now. So today I'm going not out of rock though, because that would be expensive and take a lot of time, and I would be cheaper to actually just have one carved. I think. Today, Tavis asked me what Broadway would do with my remains if I did give them to Broadway. And all I could come up with was a production of Hamlet where I got to play Yorick. Give my remains to Broadway. It came like this piece of wood. They were selling it hanging in this direction, like some kind of a wall plaque, like a little shelf with this drop down. And I was like, yeah, that's a headstone.